I'm Peter Carr. We're going to look at doing a solid brick set of stairs today, marking out the base of the stairs and the individual treads and rises, and then laying the brick stairs and a tread as well.
Now, to revisit the process of setting out the rises, total rises were 3 of them, and each riser has a going of 300mm, but we have an extra going at the top of the stairs to allow for, which sits immediately in front of the landing. Therefore our total going is 1200mm, 300mm times 4. The first riser, there's no actual bricks laid because the tread sits directly on the floor. What we're looking at now is the second riser, which is the first riser with actual bricks laid. We need to mark out now the third riser, which is 300mm back from the existing riser that's been laid. As you can see, behind the face of the riser, bricks have just been laid in there solid. There is no perps laid, the reason being none of it's seen and it would be unnecessary. The bricks are in fact laid on a bed of mortar, but there's no reason to actually put perp joints on the bricks. We now mark up the face or the inside of the wing wall with the 2 brick high riser, so that pencil marks drawn plumb 2 bricks high, and now we're marking the final riser, the face thereof. That's marked at 600mm back from that first brick riser laid, or alternately you could measure 300mm away from the landing. Again, that pencil mark needs to be plumbed up. You'll also notice there that there is actually a cavity tie laid from the wing wall back into the riser. The reason being is that we need to tie in the brick risers with the wing walls. You could in fact use a queen and a 3/4 to tie in solid brick between the wing wall and the risers. Now with the use of cavity ties it makes it much easier. We plumb up that final riser on the inside of the wing wall and now begin the process of laying that third riser, or technically only a second riser that's laid out of brick. Just remembering that we've measured 1200 out to the start of the stairs, but no riser has been laid at the 1200 underneath the brick tread. If we did in fact lay a brick riser underneath the 1200 tread, that is the tread where I am standing, it could force the height of the first rise to be too high as compared to or subject to the requirements of the Building Code of Australia. Those requirements are that each riser be between 115mm and 190mm. You now lay the face of the riser. It's best to use a string line so that your brickwork is as neat as possible. You may lay it freehand, but I always think it's important that to use a string line where possible, and that way you're ensured of a neat finish. Obviously the first 2 bricks that are laid each end or against each wing wall need to be levelled and plumbed, and then you can begin the process of filling in behind the face of that riser with solid bricks. Simply lay a neat bed and then begin laying the bricks. It's best to lay them in a bonded pattern, but there's no specific requirement as to how that pattern is made. Now, in regards to the ties, make sure that you tuck the brickwork underneath the cavity ties, as you can see on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. second course of bricks are then laid on top of the first course. There is no need to put a string line on the brickwork behind the face of the riser, but it's a good practice to get them tapped down to a level position simply by using a piece of timber. I'm marking one side of the timber that I've sighted through, that's the straightest side of that piece of timber, to ensure that the bricks are in fact laid close to level as possible. The bricks are actually being laid flush with the top of the bed joint immediately beside the brick risers being laid. As you can see on the wing walls, the top of the brick is matching the top of the brick on the wing walls. If the bricks are laid too high in behind the face of the riser, it makes it more difficult to lay the brick tread, which will be shown in another or a later video. Again, no need to perp the bricks, but keep the brickwork level with that immediately beside it. After this, tapping it down again to ensure that it's level, and then we begin laying the final solid brick riser. You can see the beginnings of that solid brick riser at the top right hand wing wall, and as you can see, we've also begun the process of marking out where the brick treads are laid. That top tread has been placed on top of the final riser so that you can see we've used an 86mm gauge set out evenly, avoiding the use of a split in the tread. That top tread again finishes close to flush with the top of the landing. We've allowed about 5–10mm for timber shrinkage of the joists and bearers. When you lay the tread, it is most important that you mark a gauge. Some bricklayers choose not to mark a gauge but lay freehand. It's a good practice to either mark the gauge using a rule, if you don't actually know your gauge off by heart. By all means, use a gauge rod or a gauge tape. Not to forget, there is a tread laid in front of the bottom brick riser, and because the first brick riser laid was in fact a split plus a brick full height, the difference in height between the first tread and the second tread will not be 170mm, but will in fact be the height of the split plus the full brick on top, which in this case appears to be approximately 135mm or 140mm. Now, obviously when you're laying the tread, it's important that you keep the mortar full in the joints, and we will go into more detail into the buttering techniques and laying the tread in the next video.